I love when coaches, consultants, and professional service providers want to do big things in their business. They want to rise to the top and influence their market and the world around them. They want to have a greater impact and make a more lucrative income. Well, if this is you, welcome to Expert in You podcast, the show where I interview other experts and coaches, consultants, so that they can share their success strategies with you. We're going to talk about marketing and how to close more sales, how to get more premium clients, and how to really build your visibility in the market and scale your business like a boss. If this is you, welcome to the show. I want to ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell right now so you don't miss one episode. Grab your coffee and buckle up because we are ready to give it all to you to help you become the expert and get paid as the expert that you are. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Expert in You podcast. I'm your host, Ann Carden. And this week, I am super excited for this guest. I've been waiting for him to come on my show because he is doing something that is very unique. It's not unique in as far as the strategy, but it's unique in the fact that he's built an entire company around it. So he is a true expert in his space, and we'll be talking about that in just a minute. But I have Joel Klettke with me today. Joel, welcome to my show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So happy to have you here. So Joel is the co-founder of the Case Study Buddy. And the reason I love this, and I'm really excited to dive into this, is because case studies are such an incredible way to get those really premium clients that are sometimes hard to reach. And to use that as a marketing strategy can just really shorten the sales cycle for companies and organizations, and it can bring in exactly the clients that they're looking for. So, Joel, you ready to dive into this?
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm pumped to get into it.
Cool. So tell us how you got into this. What was sort of your background and what brought you to really specialize, which is what you've done, in just doing case studies?
Yeah. So I had previously worked in an agency where I got a bit of exposure to how sales cycles happen and how these things go. And I left that agency where I was doing SEO in 2013, and I started doing content and copywriting, and very quickly focused on conversion copywriting. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and I had just finished a project for a company in the hosting space, and someone on their board said, "Hey, that went well. I advised this company called Pingboard. They need a case study. Is that something you do?" And I've always kind of been of the mindset that I'll try new things, I'll roll up my sleeves, I'll give them a go and see, it might not be something I do yet, but that doesn't mean it's something that I can't do. So I said, sure, yeah, I'll figure that out. And so in doing that customer story for Pingboard, it really opened my eyes to a number of things all at once. On a tactical level, I very quickly realized case studies are really tough. They're tough to do well for a whole lot of reasons. There's a lot of different disciplines that intersect. You need to be a great project manager, a great interviewer, a great writer. You need to be really strategic about asking the right questions to get the story that you're looking for, and then managing that approvals process to make sure that this thing actually sees the light of day. So they were complex. That was the first thing I noticed. The next thing I noticed was, because they're complex, there's a premium to be charged here. These are highly desired assets. Every team wants them, and yet they slip to the bottom of the priority list, or they don't get done because either people are too busy, or they don't have processes around it, or they're not sure how to come at it. They're nervous. So I thought that was interesting. The demand was there, and there was this premium you could charge because they are so valuable. Well, those things kind of came together, and I thought, well, surely somebody's built a scalable team around this and focused in and said, this is all we do. We've kind of productized it. We put a process to it. And when I looked around, it wasn't a wasteland, but there wasn't a lot there. There were individuals, freelancers doing this. There was kind of agencies where it was yet one more service that they performed, but I didn't see any dedicated teams really owning the challenges of customer stories. And so I thought, well, why not me? I'll give it a shot. It occurred to me that this was something I could build a process around, a team around. And so I thought, hey, I'll give it a go. And so I started it off the side of my desk, quickly brought in a partner to help kind of scale and grow, and did things sort of in quiet for the first year or so. And it wasn't until just before the pandemic that it became a full-time focus, almost 5 years of growing under its own steam. And now it's our full-time focus, both for my partner and I. And we've served over 300 clients, told over 2,000 stories, and growing all the time.
That's crazy. Such a great story. And there's so many gold nuggets in there. One thing that I love is, we never know where the next great idea is going to come from, right? And a lot of times it comes right to us. And so I love that you really you dove in and you said, I'm going to figure this out, not really knowing where that would go or how that would turn out. But in the process, you found something that was extremely valuable. And that's often how it happens as our business evolves, right? I always say my niches found me. I didn't go out looking for them in most cases. They found me, and it just kind of evolved into that. So great that you seized that opportunity as well. A lot of people don't look at things that way, and they sort of are doing a lot of different things, and they never get out of the weeds, so to speak, to really be able to grow. And the other thing is you discovered that it was something that could be scaled. And it sounds like you almost immediately started building your engine and your team and everything around that. So great. What a great business mind there to capitalize on that. So let's talk about case studies. First of all, who are they for? And what do they include? And why don't we just start with just the most basic of what a case study is and what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, at its heart, a case study is sort of a focused retelling of a customer's experience with your brand. It's a narrative arc that shows this transformation from a state of need or want to a state of success, of achievement. And important to that is that there is a narrative arc. This is not a white paper. This is not, a manual necessarily. We're showing the journey of someone from pain to resolution and their experience of the solution in the middle. And that middle piece to me is so important because to me, a case study, a customer success story, it has the customer at the heart. It's about their decisions, their tension, their experience, the things they saw as valuable, the outcomes they achieved, and more than just the metrics they achieved or the numbers we can put to that, what that made possible for them. Mm-hmm. So it can take different forms. It can be long form written. You can have a deep dive, say 1,500 word piece that goes from, starting point and challenge and into the solution and through to the result and mapping that out along the way. It can take the form of a video. It can take the form of short form content, but what's important is that the customer is at the heart and there's this transformative journey that someone who's considering you, someone who's considering your competitors or considering a pain that they have sees themselves in that story. It's relatable, it's believable, and they want that resolution. They want that outcome for themselves.
I love it. It's really like peeking behind the curtain and letting them see what it is like to work with a company or an organization and sort of what that process is. And even what are the expectations of that as you're working through with that company? Because a lot of times people feel that maybe it's a bit abstract, like, well, how are we going to work together? Especially very analytical people, right? Ooh, what are all the details? And so when you can see it in the form of a story, from start to finish and the results and the stories along the way and how that applies, it's easier to see, oh, okay, this is how they do things. This is, and so to me, it's super powerful. And I love it because it's one of the best ways to reach really hard to reach people, really high level people. They really respond to case studies, especially in the corporate sector. I have found. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting too is that it's almost a Trojan horse. It's not overt advertising. A good case study should never feel like you're bragging or you're just patting yourself on the back. It should never feel like, oh, well, this is so carefully curated that we're not showing our thinking or not showing, the actual experience. That's why that customer experience is so valuable. And I think when you talk about reaching these skeptical or busy, or let's face it, people who make high stakes decisions, right? These are personal decisions as much as they are business decisions. They don't want to make the wrong call. putting this in the form of a story with an experience at the center, something verifiable, something believable, something that, like this Trojan horse, shows your thinking, your strategy, your product, your ability, your capability, whatever it is, on display in this very practical way, it can diffuse a lot of that skepticism, that tension, that nervousness. A case study done well actually answers a lot of questions that prospect might have, or even an existing client might have about, well, what if we were to upgrade, or what if we were to change our engagement or invest in this other way? So you're right, Ann. It really is this opportunity to persuade and be convincing without hammering someone over the head with a sales.
Yeah. So it really is about influencing your target audience and your buyers. The other thing I want to ask you, though, is, do you also put, I'm sure you do, so I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway for my audience. Do you put emotion into your case studies as well, so people can feel how what maybe that client journey was like, and again, feel that emotional connection to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, emotion is something that's universal. It's relatable. We all feel frustrated. We feel
can't get rid of it, can we?
Exactly. We all feel, who hasn't experienced, if you've been in business for more than 10 minutes, the anger of a relationship gone wrong, or the frustration of a promise unkept, or, the nervousness of embarking with a new vendor, even when you feel like you're making the right call. So when we tell these stories, absolutely, there's always a very human hero. And part of what we try to do, and part of what you can do as a listener, is bring in that emotion to the story in a calculated, not, you don't want to go too far in that direction, but what did it feel like to make that decision? What were they nervous about? When you talk about the challenge, set some stakes. What would it have meant to get this wrong? What would it have meant to not solve this problem? When you talk about the solution, not just here's what was done, but why was that done? And how did that land? And for the customer, what did it feel like to know that your pain was being looked at, or that you were being cared for in this way? Or, what did it feel like to actually, it's great to say, oh, we launched on time and within budget, but what did that mean for you? How did it alleviate stress, or how did it make you possible for you to focus in other areas? And then when it comes to the results, again, the big mistake is just trotting out the metric, and that's fine. That might get the attention in the first place. But I think back to a story where, there was a metric about a 90% increase in efficiency. That's a pretty big number, but the emotion that was captured in the result.
I'm sure.
This frontline office administrator, and her quote was, "I no longer have to chase executives from office to office, door to door, handing out paychecks. And it's such a relief." And that is what drives action. That is what really motivates people. We think we want the metric. We do on some level, but what we really want is the feeling that comes with that outcome.
So good. It's almost like the invisible benefits. So the metric is sort of the outward quantifiable result, right? That's what you can see. And that's what will initially probably inspire people to want to get a case study done. But when you are doing it the way you're doing it, it's like it's like all these invisible benefits that you're uncovering, and you're allowing people to kind of peek into and see into. So this is so good, Joel. I love this because I'm just such a believer in case studies. And I just feel like it's one of the most powerful marketing pieces, as far as like an actual marketing piece that companies can use. And most people can scan a case study pretty quick. And you also do video form, which I love as well, because people like to see things in different ways. So good. Let's talk about 3 things that people should know about a case study. I mean, I think we've already hit on a lot of great things, but let's talk about that.
Yeah. I think the first one is, whether you're a team of 2 or a team of 20, recognize that case studies are a team sport. For you to succeed in getting these stories and telling these stories, you need more perspectives and more access than often just you have. And even if you're a team of 1, you might have to wear different hats as you're going through it. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you think about the strategy for a story, and this is maybe an adjacent thing, case studies can be strategic, not just problem, solution, results, boilerplate. When you're thinking about the strategy for telling the story, you want to think through, who are we inviting? what kinds of results do we want to share? What kinds of impacts will support the business and revenue goals that we have? Who has access? Who's closest to the customer? Will it be most appropriate for them to make the ask? And how can we empower them to do that? So recognizing that these are a team sport, that even if you're in marketing or you're the founder, you're going to be relying on other people, other teams, or other perspectives to tell these well. I think the second thing, I alluded to it a little bit there, but case studies don't have to be boring. They don't have to be, just these very generic problem solution results. There are many angles you can key into, and I want to share some ideas with you, maybe to inspire you as the listener. So, for example, you can tell a switcher type of story, someone who was with a competitor and came to you, and what did that experience look like? Or let's say you're
so good. Yes, I love it.
Let's say your challenge is in, that you have a long implementation process. There's some necessary friction there. Well, often there's no need to wait until someone's all the way into year 5 of working with you. You can tell implementation stories about what did it look like to get started, and what was that experience like, and how did that feel, and how does that progress? Again, we're answering real questions a prospect might have. You can also tell these really incredible disambiguation stories. Let's say you're entering a new market or a new industry or appealing to a new role. They'll have questions about how your solution works for them or their space. A good example of this is there was a company that did industrial air filtration, not a sexy space, but a really valuable one. And they had historically worked with warehouses, manufacturing, things like that. Well, COVID hits. All of a sudden, there's a new market, gyms. Gym owners buy and think differently than industrial warehouses. So disambiguating the value for them could be valuable. Another one that you can think about is playbooks. So you can have kind of not only what was done, but here's how to go replicate that. If you're got a platform, a solution, a framework, you can spell that out in the story. So to distill this down, though, you don't have to just, a win is not a win is not a win. You can tell these stories very strategically and be really intentional about that. And I think that the last thing I would say, a common misconception, and if you get this right, your stories will be much more powerful. And it's so simple, and it's to keep it simple. Don't try to kitchen sink it. Don't try to bring in every different win you had, every metric in the relationship, every role and every person you interact with. What you wind up with in that case, it's like taking all the spices out of the cabinet and putting them all in the same dish. It will appeal to nobody. It's not a focused narrative arc. So when we think about case studies, as you're planning your customer stories, yes, there's the temptation to just put it all in there, but try to think, who am I trying to appeal to? What do they really care about? And keep that focused narrative arc. It's okay to maybe mention these auxiliary things as a bit of an aside, but keep one focused narrative. It's going to be so much more powerful if you do.
Yeah, it's really about relevance to the person that you're going to be giving it to. And, just kind of a quick thing. One of the things when I'm helping clients build out a landing page or promote a service or promote their offer, I want them to share testimonials that fit what they are trying to sell. And so it's very much the same thing, so that it's relevant to the buyer and to the person that would be of interest. So, so good. Oh my goodness, so good. Let's talk about repurposing customer stories. I know you do it in multiple ways. So why don't you share some of that with people? And I just want to hit on one other thing real quick before we do that. I can hear in everything that you're talking about, this is not easy. You said keep it simple, but you have shared so much there that it truly looks like you need an expert if you're going to do this right and do it, have a really good, again, marketing piece for your company. It's well worth the investment. So I just wanted to throw that in as well. Give you a little plug there, Joel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to repurposing, I think the big mistake, usually what happens, to paint a picture, is there's so much work that goes into getting buy-in. Well, first getting the win, then getting buy-in to talk about the win, then coordinating, and then interviewing, and then filming or writing and telling that story, that by the time you get to the end of the first asset, there's this tendency to throw up your hands and go, we did it, and publish and leave it. And that's a huge missed opportunity. You've told this story one way, in one place, one time, and it's like buying a Ferrari and letting it sit in the garage and taking it out once a year. You're not fully leveraging this incredible thing that you've put all this investment into. So when we think about repurposing, the place to start, a very simple framework for this is nibble, bite, snack, meal, buffet. How hungry is your audience at the point in the journey they're on? And to make this practical, think about it. The typical, let's say, 1,000-word write-up, that's more of your meal. That's for someone who is maybe near the end of the journey. They're interested in delving into the details of the experience. They want that rich context. They're ready for that. But what about lead gen? I'm not necessarily ready for that. Well, that's where I nibble, like a pull quote, like you were wisely talking about, Anne, bringing that into the landing pages, a nibble of proof, a nibble of peer evidence, just to whet the appetite. Or, a snack might be something like, oh, there's this 30-second video that kind of gives me a little bit more depth, a little bit more insight, a little bit more value. Or it might be in a sales scenario, a one sheet. It might be taking that longer story, breaking it down for the attention and the buy-in you have at that point, which is less than later on, and making it really accessible. Don't count on people scanning your big stories. Repurpose them. So if we're thinking through, well, what can I leave listening this podcast and go and do? A simple way to come at it. Take your big pieces, and depending on what you have permission to do, bear that in mind. Here's some simple things you can do with most stories. You can create a one sheet for sales scenarios or handouts. You can create pull quotes that you can deploy on social and maybe even make a carousel style post out of it. If you have permission, you can take the audio from that interview, even if you didn't capture video, turn that into things like audiograms for social. Or one of my favorite things to do is embed that right along the written. Imagine being able to push play and hear that great quote plus more right in the context of the piece.
Sorry, I'm taking notes. This is so good.
No, that's great. I think the other thing, the other scenarios you can quickly deploy these in, lower lift. If you're doing cold outreach, bring a short version into that or mention the client in that. If you're doing ad campaigns, bring these into your remarketing. We have a client, Cartherk, who saw stellar results by switching from sending to landing pages in their remarketing campaigns and started pushing to relevant stories based on what people had navigated on the site. Test that out. So there's lots of ways to deploy that. You can use what you already have. And then when it comes to doing new stories, begin with the end in mind. Know what type of story, what type of strategy, what type of vertical. Plan for the channels you want to deploy on. Plan for the campaigns you want to deploy on, because that will influence the questions you ask, the formats you create, even the clients you choose. So start with what you got, create some of those things. And then for that next one, go in with intention and be really smart about how you conduct that interview and what you turn it into.
Joel, how long does it take you to go through the process to get a case study done for a client?
Yeah, bear in mind, we've had over 7 years to refine the process down. We've whacked a lot of moles over the years.
Okay, never mind. I won't ask because I don't want people to equate time with money, which is not at all what I teach people to do. But just on average, what can people expect?
There was I'll give you both. There was a study that asked, actually, that it was specific to the software space, but it asked marketers in-house and how long it took them. And the average was 40 to 60 days. So that's, you can imagine 60 days average, and that's just average. Some are going to bleed longer than that. For us, again, time is not money. And we built that process that, frankly, here, speed is a huge value to you and your client, because the longer this takes, the more that can change in that relationship. People leave, markets change, you can lose approval, all of that can happen. We've got it to the point where from the point of the interview through to final asset, we can normally deliver in a 30 to 45 day window. And so that's final finished. That's not drafts. That's fully complete approved stories. And I think the sneaky thing with this, the thing to bear in mind as a listener, it's not necessarily the creation that's going to take your time. It's the administration. It's the revisions, the chasing, the follow-up. You can create an amazing... The
mundane stuff that you don't have a lot of control over. Yes.
Yeah. The stuff no one loves to do, right?
Yes.
And so that's what you have to prepare for, is when you're investing in customer stories, the time is not just, we created this thing, we're done. The time is going to be following up and doing the red tape tango and navigating all of that. And when you've got other priorities, when you've got other initiatives, that can be really hard to stay on top of.
Right. Oh my goodness, this has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I took notes. I love the buyer's journey that you said: nibble, bite. What was the next snack? Meal and buffet.
Yeah.
So awesome. Oh my gosh, I've never heard that before. I mean, I talk about the buyer's journey all the time. I might have to steal that one, Joel. Was that yours? Is that proprietary?
It was something that we kind of came up with because we saw that it would land when we were talking about the appetite for information people have.
Ooh,
and I know the question probably lingering for people, what's a buffet? So I want to answer that, because if a meal is the biggest core piece, what's a buffet? And that's a huge missed opportunity. That's combinations.
That's everything.
You've got 5 stories, make them into a nuclear deck, make them into a compendium. So that's, if you think about the appetite for information and insight that someone has at the different stages, or even channel to channel, someone on social is very different than someone in email. It's a framework that just seems to land.
Well, it's so good. All right, I won't steal it. It's going to kill me not to steal it, though, because it's so good.
Yeah.
No, this has been great. How can people get a hold of you, Joel? And what's the best way for them to reach out to you and have a conversation? And then also, before we get off here, I actually have someone I think I probably want to introduce you to as well, that there might be some synergy there and some opportunity for you. So anyways, keep going. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you want to learn more about our process, if you want to pick our brains, so to speak, casestudybuddy.com. You can learn all about how we come at this and what we do. It's a great place to book a time and connect. We have a blog full of, if you've enjoyed the things I've been saying, if you like practical nuggets, go do this ideas, things that will help you set up programs on your own so you can enable us to come in and do our best work or do better work yourself. Our blog is full of that stuff. If you want to connect with me personally on LinkedIn, I don't always respond quickly, but I always respond. I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to jam on where you're at. Normally it leads up into a 15, 20-minute opportunity for us to chat through things and where you're at and share some ideas. But I love to connect on this. You can imagine when you've been staring at the same set of problems for over 7 years, you pick up quite a lot. And when you have a front row seat to see how hundreds of companies come at this, I'm not closed off to still being surprised. There's always something new to learn, but chances are really good. The thing you're dealing with, whether it's buy-in or anonymization or strategy, chances are we've seen it before and helped navigate it.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for being my guest. What a pleasure to have you here. You dropped so much gold and so much value here for my listeners. So thank you so much. And we'll put all of your links and everything in the show notes, and people will be able to reach out to you in multiple ways. So it's just been an honor to have you here. Thanks.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. And I love the questions you asked and just the chance to connect. I love to share on this. And I feel like you navigated this beautifully. So thank you for the chance to share as well.
Well, great. Thank you. All right, everyone. I want to thank you again for listening to another episode. Please share it. Sharing is caring, as someone eloquently said, and I stole that. But it is important that other people hear this, because I didn't even know Joel existed, and we came across him. I don't even know how. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to have him on. So, we think everybody knows about us, right? Or we think so many people know that these things exist, but it's a busy world out there. There's a lot going on. So to have a specialist, I love to have specialists and experts on this show. And you truly are, Joel. So thank you for the work that you're doing, because I know everything that you are doing, you are impacting businesses, companies, lives, and I can hear your passion for it as well. So everyone, thank you. Like it, share it. And until next week, God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye. If you've enjoyed this episode, I want to invite you to go check out a free training that I have at expertinu.us. It is a training that I have on how you can get ultra premium dream clients, scale your business, get more freedom, and really simplify your business and multiply your money. So go check that out. And again, that is expertinu.us. I want to thank you for being here with me this week. I hope you found massive value. Please always leave a comment, feedback, or a question. We check them all. And I want you to go rock your business, and make sure you join us again next week. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.